As you also know, we just hit the 6-month milestone after tax reform, and I'm sure that's mostly what you're reporting on these days. I just want to say just how far we've come in a brief period of time. Wages are rising, unemployment remains low, people are feeling confident again. It is just what the majority leader said. The kind of economic turnaround that we have seen since tax reform exceeded our expectations, and we've been working on this issue for decades. After tax reform, our top priority was to rebuild our military. One of the chief architects of rebuilding our military is Chairwoman Kay Granger. We needed to address a very serious readiness crisis in this country that was costing us American lives. We were able to secure the biggest funding increase in defense spending in 15 years. With this defense funding bill, we are putting these promises into action. We are starting a new era for our military. This bill invests in training. It invests in equipment. It provides funding for modern systems so that our military is best equipped for the challenges we face in 21st century warfare. New challenges, tough challenges. This is about ensuring that our armed forces, after years of being hollowed out, can operate on the cutting edge with agility and efficiency. And this defense bill gives our service members their biggest pay raise in 9 years. What our troops do is nothing short of remarkable. They have our greatest admiration, and this raise is well-deserved. We want the men and women who wear our uniform to always have what they need to fulfill their missions and to take care of their families. So we are keeping promises that we have made. We are doing in office what we said we would do in the campaign in 2016. Through our policies, whether it's bolstering our economy or strengthening our defense, we are reinforcing America's leadership in the world. I assume you have lots of questions about the defense bill. Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. You said a couple of weeks ago, you said you want to keep all the tools in your toolbox in terms of addressing contempt or other sanctions with the FBI, Justice Department on document production and things. I hear from some of the members of those committees that they're not pleased with where things go. Will anything move this week? And if not, can something like this, in order to satisfy the demands of your members, can it wait till after the week ends a lot?
Well, obviously, I typically don't think the Speaker of the House has to get involved every time we have a legitimate document request of the executive branch from the legislative branch. I did get involved. I got involved a week ago. And since that, we have had compliance coming forth from the DOJ. Now, the question is, will all the requests be honored this week? I think they're going to be honored very, very soon. We had them working through the weekend to deal with completing the document requests that our committees have had made among the Department of Justice. There are technical issues involved. It's literally like computer search terms and things like that. But we do expect full compliance very, very soon. And if we do not get that, then we're going to keep every single option available to us because, again, the legislative branch has a constitutional duty to do oversight over the executive branch. That is what we're doing. We have gotten more documents in the past week than we have gotten in weeks and months. So we've got a lot to sift through. And by the way, what you learn from the IG is what we are seeing in our investigation. Bias, we are seeing all of these things, and we have to run down every one of these leads so that we can bring transparency and accountability to the executive branch.
Have you had to call off the dogs on some of your
Yeah.
members wanting to be more aggressive with this?
You guys really addressed, you took up a slew of opioid-related bills this month.
Right.
Some experts say you guys failed to provide adequate funding. Some said
Adequate funding, $3 billion. We have put more money in opioids than any Congress has in the history of this country.
I've heard the opposite.
We put
I've heard a lot of praise for what we've been able to do. We fired Kara, and now another $3 billion.
This is the second tranche of funding. We did CARA in 2015 and then followed up with appropriations. Now we're doing these bills, which also has very big pay-fors in it. So you have never seen a legislative assault on the opioid epidemic like you have seen with this Congress. We took 48 bills, I think it was.
So you start with 70, but yeah, we
Yes.
piled them into one.
We put them into one bill. Why did we do that? Because we want to make it easy for the Senate to pass it. We know the Senate takes time to do anything. So we took all of these bills from all of our members with huge bipartisan vote, put it in one bill to make it easy for the Senate to get it done. So we're excited and confident that we can get our hands around this real crisis that is affecting our communities, the opioid crisis. And I'm very proud of the work that our members have done. And the funding to address this crisis is unprecedented. The bonus.
Mr. Speaker, you repeatedly pointed to Harley-Davidson when you were selling the tax bill and the need for tax reform. Now, because of the president's trade policy of removing jobs overseas, the reaction
Yeah.
reverse that policy.
I'll say it again. I've said it all the ways. I don't think tariffs are the right way to go. I think tariffs are basically taxes. And what ends up happening is you get escalating tariffs or escalating taxes. One of the reasons we did tax reform is to make it easier for businesses to keep manufacturing in America and exporting overseas. Because with taxes like tariffs, some companies make overseas in order to penetrate foreign markets. That's why we want to lower those barriers. There are unfair trading practices, no two ways about it, by other countries. I think it's in our interest to use other tools to go after those unfair trading practices to stop companies or countries from dumping, from cheating, from stealing, from doing IPR theft and the rest. But I think there are better tools than tariff increases. Yeah. Usually.
Since we've been sitting here, we've had a couple of significant rulings from the Supreme Court that seem to be in conservatives' favor. One, knocking down a California law that limited what pro-life and anti-abortion groups could say. The anti-abortion groups calling that a victory. And also the Supreme Court just upheld the president's travel ban. That's something that you have supported in the past. Can you comment? Obviously, I'm just learning this now, I think, but can you comment in general?
You mean the ruling that just came out this morning? I haven't had a chance to look at that because I've been in conference this whole time.
How significant would a Supreme Court ruling in favor of that travel ban be?
Let me read the ruling and get back to you. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. There are a number of children that are still separated from their parents that hold in facilities. What's the plan?
So obviously, we address this in the bill we're bringing to the floor Wednesday. We've made it extremely clear. We want to keep families together, and we want to secure the border and enforce our laws. Our government, because of a court ruling or a law, should not be forced to choose between keeping families together and securing the border and enforcing our laws. We should be able to do all of those, and that is the legislation that we're supporting and proposing. I want to get through the first Wednesday vote because I want to lean into that vote and do as well as we possibly can on that vote. And then if that doesn't succeed, then we'll cross that bridge. But the last thing I want to do is undercut a vote on what is a great consensus bill that we're bringing to the floor Wednesday. Susan.
How would you respond to conservative critics who say you really didn't work hard enough with that bill, which got 193 votes, and they say they want you to turn back?
We whipped it in February. We spent 6 months in listening session after listening session on the Goodlatte bill. There hardly is another legislative effort that we put as much effort into than getting the Goodlatte bill over the finish line. It's just getting those last 20 or 30 votes are always the hardest. We've been whipping this thing since February. Babe.
To continue on immigration, you've been in the room for these negotiations. Moderates say they keep adding conservative provisions to the bill, and they can't get conservatives to yes. Do you feel like both sides are negotiating in good faith?
Yeah.
And then if this fails, what can be learned from this whole exercise?
Yeah, I do think both sides are negotiating in good faith. I think these have been extraordinarily productive meetings. We have a big conference with big different views in districts, and the president was communicating his frustration with the Senate. And that's what some of our members communicate, the same frustration, which is we get something through the House, and you're still going to need at least 9 Democrat votes to break filibuster. So that is frustrating to our members because obviously this is something that can be filibustered and they expect would be filibustered. But having said all of that, Rachel, I think what we have here is the seeds of consensus that will be gotten to hopefully now, but if not later. The Supreme Court's going to rule on this issue. They're going to rule on DACA eventually. The past president, Obama, exceeded his authorities. We believe that he should not have been able to do this. And at the end of the day, this president, laid out a smart plan, very reasonable, his 4 pillars. And what this compromise does is address those 4 pillars on how to solve this problem. So I think, hopefully sooner rather than later, ultimately we're going to arrive on fixing this broken immigration system by addressing these 4 pillars. Dealing with DACA in a smart way, going toward a merit-based immigration system, and securing the border, securing the rule of law. He was just asking us about opioids and all the opioid issues. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he just, thank you very much. He was addressing opioids. You know one of the biggest problems we got with opioids? We got heroin, cheap heroin coming over the southern border from Mexican drug cartels. We need to secure our borders, if only to stop all these drugs from going into our kids' high schools. So this is very, very important. And I do think at the end of the day, you're going to see a 4-pillar-like compromise that is going to address this issue. Hopefully it's now. If not, it's going to be later.
Last question. Detaining families is expensive and obviously controversial. Would you be open to
Catch and release, no.
Or ankle bracelets? Ankle bracelets, the pilot programs have been pretty successful.
Imagine if we do what the Democrats are suggesting, which is to tell the world, if you can just come to this country, we're not going to have closed borders. We should not have to be in a situation where we're saying separate families or secure the border. We should be able to keep families together and secure the border and enforce our laws. It is ridiculous to think that we have to choose between families staying together and securing our border and enforcing our laws. There's one more thing I want to say, and I want to add to what Steve said about Congresswoman Waters. There's no place for this. She obviously should apologize. When we in this democracy are suggesting that because we disagree with people on political views, on policy views, on philosophical views, that we should resort to violence and harassment and intimidation, that's dangerous for our society. It's dangerous for our democracy. She should apologize, and there's just no place for that in our public discourse. Thank you.